Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Since the launch of the original Apple Watch, Apple have been continually improving and refining watchOS, resulting in the latest version, watchOS version 4. In this week's show, we're going to take a look at some of the improvements, as well as some of the new features included in this brand new release.